Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Nur Atika binti Kamra Zaman, the first presenter for today. I hope everyone is doing well and taking care of themselves. For today's presentation, my groupmates and I will be talking about a topic entitled workplace learning. As what you can see on the screen right now, these are some of the mini topics that we are going to tap into for today's presentation. I will be in charge of explaining about workplace learning, its definition, its types, its importance, as well as the issues or challenges with regards to workplace learning. I hope everyone will sit back, relax, and enjoy our presentation.
In a fast-changing world, skills and jobs quickly go out of date. Everyone needs to keep updating and extending their skills throughout their careers. Employers need to ensure their employees have the right skills. Governments need a workforce with the right skills for the labour market and the economy. Adult learning in the workplace can help in reaching these goals. People can maintain and update the skills they need to use at work, at home, and in society. Employers can keep their employees' skills up to date, which increases motivation and improves staff retention. Governments can increase productivity and innovation and boost employee rates and skills levels. Adult learning in the workplace also promotes the integration of vulnerable groups in society. Promoting adult learning in the workplace is a policy priority. To be effective, policies need a long-term commitment from employers, trade unions, governments, and training organisations, sustainable funding, effective coordination between them, a range of high-quality learning opportunities that are tailored to the needs of the labour market and of adult learners. Make adult learning your priority. Play your part today.
Here is an overview of my presentation. I will be addressing all of the three questions and then the issues and challenges of workplace learning. First of all, what is workplace learning? Well, there's a lot of definitions out there, but one of the simplest, most comprehensive ones would be the acquisition of knowledge or skills by formal or informal means that occurs in the workplace. Simply put, it's just learning while you are at work. It may include formal training, such as going to courses, workshops, or seminars. It could also be informal training or learning, which is often incorporated into workplace social interactions and also everyday practices at the workplace. We will look into this later. Now, what kind of skills or knowledge do we pick up or acquire at work? Firstly, it can be occupational or job-related skills. For example, for teachers, it could be skills in using a new assessment or evaluation instrument. It could be technological skills, or it could also be knowledge regarding learning disabilities among students. Secondly, it can also be soft skills, which I'm sure everyone is already familiar with by now. These skills include leadership, time management, or even communication skills. Essentially, all of these skills and knowledge would contribute to the professional development of the individual or the employee, and ultimately the organization as a whole. Although workplace learning includes both formal and informal elements, recent discussions on workplace learning have been placing more and more emphasis on informal workplace learning. This is actually driven by two factors. Firstly, it is adult learning. Now, people are starting to realize that adults learn better and more through conversations, reflections, practices, and experiences at the workplace. Secondly, economic considerations also contribute to the growing importance of informal workplace learning. This is because some companies or organizations are pressured to lower costs and budgets for employee training. Therefore, encouraging informal workplace learning is a means for them to still be able to help their employees develop professionally while simultaneously exploiting the limited time and budgets available. So, how do we learn at work? Basically, it can be summarized into four types or categories. This was suggested by Jane Hart, founder of the Center for Learning and Performance Technology, who's also the founder of Modern Workplace Learning 2020. Now, Jane Hart identified four ways that employees learn at work, which are known as the 4Ds: didactics, discovery, doing, and discourse. Didactics leans more towards formal learning, whereas the other 3Ds are considered as informal learning. Let's take a look at didactics. Didactics refers to what is being taught to us. This includes employees joining classroom trainings or online courses that focus on specific skills, such as using Microsoft Excel. Trainers can be individuals from the organization itself, or they could also be external entities that have expertise in the respective area of knowledge or skill. The second D is discovery, where you learn by finding things out on your own. Some strategies include reading articles, watching videos, or listening to podcasts, but they must be related to your profession or job, of course. This is a way for employees to take charge of their own learning, become autonomous learners, and make the most out of the resources available around them at their workplace. This could also be complementary to the classroom training. For example, the employee may have joined a classroom training on Microsoft Excel, but there are still things or functions on Microsoft Excel that were not covered during the classroom training. So the employee would then use Microsoft Excel and then discover all these other functions that are available on that software on his own. The third D is doing, which is also known as experiential learning. This is a way for employees to learn by doing something or experiencing something themselves. Some examples of experiential learning include reactive learning, which is by involving oneself in a situation that would require decision making. For example, a novice teacher would pick up new skills of classroom management by experiencing a situation in the classroom, him or herself. It could be students suddenly breaking into a physical fight in the middle of the lesson, so the teacher has to react to that. Right there and then, the teacher will then acquire or pick up new skills in managing students' misbehaviors in the classroom. Another example of experiential learning is coaching or mentoring. Now, this is a way for employees to learn by observing or seeking advice from a more skilled or a more experienced employee. In a school setting, it could be a mentor-mentee relationship between a novice teacher and a teacher who has been teaching for, let's say, 20 years or so. The final D is discourse, which is also known as social learning. This is when employees learn through social interactions with their colleagues at their workplace. Just a simple exchange of the trick of the trades, tips, and discussions about, for example, recent pedagogical approaches with fellow teachers over a cup of tea during breaks could really help these teachers to pick up new skills as well as knowledge. Now let's go to the next question. Why is workplace learning important? Firstly, we need to remember that the world is constantly evolving. And with that, we need to be able to adapt to those changes as well. Especially nowadays, we have the emergence of Industry 4.0, which means that there's an increasing automation and digitization of workplace. Moreover, unprecedented events can also happen. For example, this current COVID-19 pandemic. For educators worldwide, this pandemic means that they have to adapt to a whole new approach of teaching and learning, which is the open and distance learning. Now, according to LinkedIn 2020 Workplace Learning Report, technical skills have a relatively short shelf life of less than 5 years. The skills needed 10 years ago are very different from the ones needed now. Basically, the world does not stop for us. We are the ones who need to catch up. Next, workplace learning is also a means for an organization to address the weaknesses within it. For example, Company A found out that their employees lacked the ability to use PowerPoint effectively. Therefore, The company may address this setback by sending their employees to a classroom training specifically for teaching PowerPoint skills, and then encourage these employees to use PowerPoint in their job. Thus, by encouraging workplace learning through didactics and discovery, the company successfully addresses what was lacking among the employees. Workplace learning also helps to improve employees' performance and productivity. I think it goes without saying that when employees become more skilled and knowledgeable, they will then be able to perform their jobs more effectively and efficiently, which will then contribute to their overall performance as well as productivity. Last but not least, workplace learning encourages continuous learning. This is because workplace learning can also take place even when you are discovering things out on your own or when you are having conversations, substantial conversations with your colleagues at the workplace. It happens day by day, little by little, so that employees take full advantage of the resources, time, as well as opportunities available around them. It's undeniable that workplace learning really is important. Nevertheless, there are still issues or challenges that may hinder an effective execution of workplace learning. The first issue is the lack of engagement. According to Shiradip, in a poll of 6,500 employees across the globe, 59% of the respondents stated that their workplace learning experiences could not be considered as exciting or engaging. Tricia Hartley, Chief Executive of the Campaign for Learning, stated that companies have sent employees on courses simply because they had purchased so many places on a course, regardless of whether that course is truly relevant for the individual or the job or not. So the employees often come out not having learned much at all. So as education students, we have seen numerous discussions about how learning should cater to students' individual differences, such as their learning styles or their proficiency level. This should be applicable to these employees, or I might say adult learners as well. Workplace learning should move to a more tailored and a more personal approach with the needs of the individual at the heart of it. The second issue, which is also the final point from me, is a poor learning culture. Now, a good learning culture means that the organization's values provide a supportive environment for learning. As opposed to that, some indicators of a poor or weak learning culture include not giving employees enough time to complete their training, not providing ample, compulsory, and optional learning opportunities for the employees, as well as not recognizing those employees who have reached milestones in their learning. Due to this weak learning culture, the employees may feel frustrated and unsupported by their organization. That is all from me. Thank you so much for watching. I will now pass the floor to Nurul Nazira to continue with situated learning and cognition.
Hello, I am Nurul Nazira and I will be presenting on situated learning and cognition. This past degree years had been a roller coaster for me. What keeps me afloat these days is a quote by Queen Herbie. You will never know you're capable if you do not evolve. And this ODL had really taught me on how to evolve on situated learning and cognition. First, let's look at the definition. Situated learning is a theory claiming that students are more inclined to learn by actively participating in the learning experience. It was proposed by John Love and Etienne Wenger in the early 1990s, which followed their predecessors like Dewey and Vygotsky. When combined with the cognitive theory, it simply means learning should be contextual. Since we are presenting in terms of workplace upskilling, your career of choice is the context that you will be learning in. Second, simply put, context means your target career, which will then help you to target a professional skill within the career. After that, you will be able to scout upskilling opportunities. An example would be you are a teacher wanting to learn 21st century teaching methodology. Therefore, you might want to learn how to code using Elementor, so you may build a website for your subject. Third, now, the challenge here is our educational system focuses largely on declarative knowledge. Declarative knowledge is the kind of knowledge that are textbook-based. You repeat something and you regurgitate it on an exam paper. It doesn't really connect well into real life. This can also be seen on how the Malaysian government severely tracks and streamlines their students. But real life does not work that way. Research had shown that trainee workers or students are more likely to thrive in authentic learning, which situated learning and cognition are more likely to provide. This is due to the fact that whatever that is learned within context will be more likely to be applicable in real world. Moving on, there are several reasons to participate in situated learning and cognition. First, contextual learning increases retention by immersing the learner in real-world situations. It allows you to be more dynamic ready in case you need a more pragmatic approach at work. Second, situated learning and cognition increases your opportunity at life by allowing you to harness multiple skill sets. Being a jack or Jill of all trades can be advantageous in today's world rather than specializing. Even more so with the current pandemic situation, transferable skills will allow you to open another door when one had been shut for you. I think our ODL class sessions had been a proof of this because the lecturers that adapt the best seems to usually have learned ICT-based skill sets before. Therefore, they do not feel too bogged down when online learning happened. Lastly, it encourages us to foster a growth mindset where learning does not stop in formal institutions such as universities or schools, or even practical sessions in workplaces. Situated learning and cognition allows you to balance knowledge with your mental and physical health because it does not bottleneck your growth. Connection with real-life situations allows you to learn for professional and self-satisfaction, focusing on intrapersonal as well as interpersonal skills. A never-ending learning within your means and context would make life more meaningful, which studies had shown to be remedial when it comes to combating depression and burnout. Furthermore, there are several steps to applying situated learning and cognition in terms of workplace learning. First, match your targeted skills based on demand, career path, or personal goals. Second, find the most suitable outlet to upskill yourself. You might have to work with a few caveats depending on what financial resources you have. Third, guard your learning by allocating space and time to acquire the skill. This might include scheduling your life or regulating your headspace. Fourth, track your progress. Check in with the milestones and find a support circle if needed. Apart from that, we also have the 4 ways in which situated learning and cognition are applied in classes targeted at both professionals and students. I will link them with real-world examples of situated learning and cognition for more clarity. First, we have cognitive apprenticeship. It involves immersing the learners in an authentic environment which would include induction programs. Over a span of time, learners will be given more responsibilities as they gradually become more efficient at their tasks. They will also be under the tutelage of the master of the subject area. It is similar to practicum or industrial trainings. Second, we have the anchored instruction that was first introduced by the Cognition and Technology Group at Vanderbilt, CGTV. In this method, learners are divided into smaller groups and given information on how to solve realistic problems. Independent research may be conducted by learners, but certain parameters will be set by the trainer, so it becomes less open-ended. An example would be handling corporate events or exhibition, because when it comes to things like this, you usually have a target market and a budget to work with. Third, a learning community may also be created for learners to grow using situated learning. It is quite tricky to do it offline as there will be social structure shifts in the classroom. However, the rise of technology allows the creation of online learning communities with the same idea behind it. Each member may bring their unique interests and determine the direction of the learning session. For an example, there is an online community dedicated at learning how to use PowerPoint on YouTube. Fourth, assessment in situ allows learners to better conceptualize the knowledge within their context. There are 3 different assessment approaches that have been proposed for on-the-ground reasons. In the diagnosis method, the instructor analyzes the progress of the learner in real time and adapts the environment according to the learner's needs. An example would be a personal or a master class on public speaking. Second, in the summary statistics method, trainers keep track of the learner's performance over time and identify the time spent on specific informations. This allows them to specifically tailor the syllabus to the individual student's needs. An autonomous summary statistic would be hitting milestones on an e-learning platform such as Allison. If you find yourself struggling at one part of the copywriting course, you may go over it again or look for resources on YouTube. Lastly, in the portfolio method, learners are required to document the processes of coming out with a product or a solution. Learners maintain control of the assessment process as they choose which work will be placed in their portfolio. An example would be a resume workshop. Now, before I end, some of the online resources that I found to be great for autonomous situated learning and cognition include TED-Ed, Allison, MOOC, Souls 24/7, YouTube, and Skillshare. Most of them are free, but depending on your financial situation, you might want to pay for subscriptions. Finally, remember, strategic persistence may outrun talent. Expend your energy where it matters, so you may grow and not remain stagnant. That's all for my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Atika and Nas. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day to all, especially to Dr. Fatin. So today we will be learning on the third subtopic, which is number 3, being a reflective practitioner. But before we go any further into this subtopic, let's have a look at the quote below. The general who wins the battle makes many calculations in his temple before the battle is fought. The general who loses makes but few calculations beforehand. So what does this mean? We'll discuss this later on in the video. So what is a reflective practitioner? Reflective practitioners are professionals who are capable of and often reflect on their previous accomplishments of their tasks for future improvements. The reflection allows them to look back on what they have done, how the process went, what was the outcome of the work, how efficient they do their current practices, and how they can further improve them. So reflective practitioner is actually professionals who do reflections a lot on their career. They think back on what they have done, how the process went, how was the outcome of the work, how efficient it was, and how they can further improve them. As teachers, as future teachers, we are also encouraged to become a reflective practitioner. where we need to reflect on what we have done for our previous lessons, how the lesson went, what was the outcome of the lesson, how efficient was the lesson, and how we can further improve the lesson. So, why are reflections or being reflective is important? There are three major points that are highlighted for this. Number one is promotes troubleshooting. Number two is promotes growth. And number three, prevents stagnation. The first importance is being reflective promotes troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is a problem-solving technique, but with a more systematic and organized approach and steps. Troubleshooting has several steps, starting with finding the problems, finding the causes for the problem, finding possible solutions, and lastly, applying the solutions. So troubleshooting requires a lot of contemplation and reflection because there is a lot of things that need to be thought out to solve the problem. We need to think on what is the problem, what are the causes for the problems, what are the possible solutions that we can use, and how we can apply those ideas to solve our situation. And troubleshooting is also one of the main skills in action research, which both attempts to solve problems. The second point is it promotes growth of various parts of our life. Being reflective has an ultimate purpose or objective, which is wanting to become better and wanting to grow. It's either to become more efficient, more productive, etc. So what does this have in common? What's the major points here? It is the want to grow and to become better. So being reflective allows us to familiarize ourselves with always wanting to grow and to become better. It's either about ourselves wanting to become a better person, or whether about career, education, relationships, basically anything. And promoting growth also leads to the next point, which is preventing stagnation. Last but not least, the third point is number 3, preventing stagnation. So when a person has such an enthusiasm towards improving themselves and their overall aspects of life, they will prevent stagnation. So what is stagnation? Stagnation is a state of life where nothing improves and remains the same, remains static. Preventing stagnation means we are preventing ourselves from stopping to progress and improve. But before we can become a reflective practitioner, there are two things that we need to master and get a hold of. The first thing is the related knowledge and information, and the second is the necessary skills that we need to reflect. So a lot of things that we can do to develop understanding of our related topics, which is for us teachers and teaching. So the first thing that we can do is to read, which is very obvious, because reading will develop deeper understanding of related topics. We can read formal materials such as newspapers, research articles, website posts and such, or even informal materials such as Facebook page posts and such, because nowadays we have a lot of social media pages that offers a room for teachers to confess and share their insights on things. So from there, we can learn a lot and gain experience from perspectives of other teachers. Besides that, another thing that we can do is to ask people around us, especially us later who are going through practicum for next semester. We can ask senior teachers around us as well as our supervisor to gain more inputs, to gain more knowledge on how we can teach better. Last but not least, we need to keep watch on our surroundings. Sometimes we never realize it, but we tend to miss what is happening on our surroundings. So sometimes spending time to observe our surroundings can serve to become helpful, especially later on during reflective stage, where we need to be able to describe what was happening during a certain situation. Now we move on to the second part, which is developing the necessary skills to become a reflective practitioner. So number 4 is understanding our feeling. Sometimes we tend to ignore our feelings or dismiss them, but to become a reflective practitioner, emotions and feelings are among of the most important things that we need to consider. Therefore, we need to be able to understand what we are feeling and what are causing them for us to be able to become a reflective practitioner. The fifth point is talk, or in other words, be brave to talk. So sometimes we have a lot of thoughts going through our mind. Therefore, we need to be brave to express it out and talk about it, because being a reflective practitioner requires us to become honest with ourselves and address problems directly, straightforward, address issues, address causes and the solutions. Thus, being more open with talking these kind of stuff will greatly help ourselves to become a better self-reflectors. Last but not least, the skill that we need to get developed is 6. Get used to thinking. So being reflective requires us to spend a lot of time in our mind, in our thoughts, to reflect and to contemplate. Therefore, we need to be familiar with spending time thinking about a lot of stuff. Besides that, we also need to learn to think healthily, because sometimes if we spend too much time within our thoughts, we can develop a wrong way of thinking. We start to think negatively. Therefore, before we can jump to become a reflective practitioner, we need to practice to think healthily, positively, with the purpose of improving ourselves and our surroundings instead of bringing things down. So now, how can we do reflections? There are 4 steps in doing reflections. The first is describing the experience. Number 2 is analysis and reflection. Number 3 is theorizing and problem solving. And last but not least is experimentation, adjustment, and best solution. The first stage is describe the experience. This is the problem seeking part, where we'll find the problems and the issues that we want to reflect on and gather the necessary information for it later to be analyzed. So in this process, we need to gather all the necessary informations and descriptions of the situation, so that all the information that we have gathered can be used. We need to be able to describe how was the experience. For example, if we are reflecting on our past lesson, we need to be able to describe how was the lesson, how did it go, what did we do, how was the students' reactions, and so forth. So these are among of the informations that we need to have on our hands before we can do the analysis and reflections. So the second process is analysis and reflections. From the descriptions and details that we have gathered in the first process, we are going to analyze it and reflect on it to find out what is causing the problems to occur. So using the information that we have gathered from process 1, we are going to find out why the problems are occurring in such situations. For example, why the problems are happening in our past lesson. Why did the students did not understand my lesson of that day? So this is the process or the stage where we are going to analyze and think of what is causing the problem to happen. So after analyzing the problems in the second step, so we move on to the next step, which is theorizing and problem solving. So using the information that we have gathered from the second process, we then theorize and create possible solutions that we can do to solve the problems. We do a lot of theories that we believe may work to solve them. So this is the thinking process and the problem solving process where we figure out what we can do to resolve them. Last but not least is the fourth stage, experimentation, adjustment, and best solution. So after we have gathered out all the possible solutions that we can do, then we move on to the fourth stage. We then experiment with the theories that we have generated and then test it out, whether it works or not. And most of the time, we will need to make adjustment to it because we generate theories is not perfect. So adjustments and fine-tunings will help to make it work perfectly. And last but not least, we will often come up with the best solution. So that's how being reflective works to solve a problem. We start from describing what has happened, and then we analyze what is causing them. Then we see what are the possible solutions that we can do to solve them, and then we test it out and we make adjustments to it. So now we have covered all the necessary parts for being a reflective practitioner. Now we go on to the necessary things that we need to remember in becoming a reflective practitioner. The first thing is reflections can be done with others. Just because it is commonly done alone, it does not mean that we cannot have inputs from others. We can actually ask from other people as well. And also reflections can be done with other people, and it's not just a solitary activity. Also, we do not expect you to become Wikipedias. We don't expect you to know everything, every single thing. Therefore, you can seek help and you can seek information from others. Do not burden yourself by doing reflections alone and struggling on your own. The second thing that we need to remember is reflecting can be a slow process. Do not beat yourselves up if you cannot find the solutions fast. It's a trial and error. It involves theories. It is unproven. Therefore, we need to test out all the possible solutions one by one, whether it works or not. So it can become a very slow process. Not to mention, there are 4 steps that you have to go through before you can solve the problem, as well as you need to master the knowledge first before you can solve the problem itself. So there are a lot of factors that may hinder you from progressing fast. So the last but not least, the most stress notes that I have here for all of us to remember is that reflection is done for the better, not to critique and judge. We must remember that we reflect to come up with solutions for a better future, not to bring others down or beat ourselves up for mistakes and flaws. We do reflection so that we can become a better version of ourselves. We can make better situations in the future, not to cause demotivation or to depress others and ourselves. So these are the things that we need to keep reminding ourselves. It's for the positive and not for the negative. So before I end my part for this presentation, do you still remember my quote from my first slide? The general who wins the battle makes many calculations in his temple before the battle is fought. So here, people who spend a lot of time thinking, reflecting, contemplating, and strategizing are always the person that will become successful in any battle. So being a reflective practitioner helps us to always become prepared whenever a battle occurs in our life. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening, and now we'll move on to the next part.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi, my name is Shazli Kamila binti Muhammad Syafi'i. I'm from 7B, and for this topic, continuous improvement in an organization, Kaizen, Fawaz and I will be presenting on it. So let's have a look on the overview of the subtopics first. So for this part, we will have a look on the definition of continuous improvement, the Schuhart cycle, the definition of Kaizen, the Kaizen cycle, and lastly, the importance and benefits of both continuous improvement and Kaizen in an organization. So stay tuned to know more about this topic. Firstly, let's have a look on the definition of continuous improvement. So what is continuous improvement? Continuous means that it is ongoing, constant, while improvement means that it is an action of improving, to make something, action of making something better. So basically, continuous improvement means that it is an ongoing effort to improve something. So this includes all of the efforts that an organization takes, that an organization or company takes in order to achieve their goal of improving their organization. So, an action taken in order to improve doesn't really have to be a huge one. It can be the small ones, the small things too. In other words, baby steps are also considered a type of improvement, a type of development. Okay? So as long as the progress is constant, a huge difference will definitely and eventually be seen in the end product. In order to achieve the intended goals, an organization should start creating a plan called Continuous Improvement Plan, which consists of a set of activities that act as a framework for both employers and employees to refer to in order for them to achieve gradual improvement to the product. Okay, so for instance, the goal is to create a more positive work environment. So remember that this goal can never be achieved overnight. So hence why baby steps must be taken, and it should be an ongoing process. So for instance, to achieve this, they can start to probably instill the habit of greeting each other in the morning. Every day in the morning whenever they arrive at work, they can start by greeting their teammates or their department. And then soon it can be upgraded to probably having lunch together with their own teammates on certain days, and so on and so forth. So there are many other ways that they can do, and they can start off with the most simple ones, which could be greeting each other first, and then go to lunch, and then probably have like, I don't know, family day, and just to create the bond, to make the bond stronger between them. So basically, the bottom line is this continuous improvement plan will help in aiding them to achieve the intended goal. Next, we'll move on to the Schuhart cycle. So this cycle is also known as the Deming cycle due to the name of the founder, William Deming. So in essence, this Schuhart cycle is a 4-step management method that is used in businesses or in any organizations that act as a framework for both employers and employees to refer to in instilling a continuous improvement environment into their companies. So this Schuhart cycle follows a circle with no beginning or end, meaning that that continuous improvement is a process that never stops. As the name suggests, continuous, ongoing improvement, ongoing effort to improve something. Okay, so the 4 steps that are in the cycle are plan, do, check, and act. So let's have a look at it. So first is plan. So before any actions is taken, planning should definitely come first. Okay, so in this stage, this is where both employers and employees would together identify the problems in their workplace. And also, when they have identified the problems or the issues that they are facing, they should come up with some of these suggestions or some of the approaches that are feasible, that can help in surmounting the issues. Okay, so for instance, let's say the main problem is the lacking of a positive environment or atmosphere in the organization. So since the goal is to achieve a more positive workplace environment, both employers and employees should suggest some of the actions that can be taken in order to achieve this goal. So even the small ones, such as I mentioned earlier, instilling the habit of greeting each other every morning whenever they have arrived at work, or probably they can start by allocating 10 minutes every morning to have tea or coffee together with their department before they start working separately. Next is do. For this part, this is where all of the actions or that are suggested earlier in the planning stage is finally implemented. So however, we have to bear in mind that this is the experimenting stage, whereby the plan is only executed onto one small group only within the time set, because the results will be monitored from time to time. So meaning start to execute the finalized suggestions onto one department only. For instance, the management department. So this management department will start to greet each other every morning, and probably have the 10-minute session, coffee or tea session together at the pantry every day before they do their work. So maybe after 2 weeks, the results will be checked and analyzed, and they have to and see whether it has brought any differences or not. Moving on to the next step, which is check. So in this step, this is where all of the approaches that were implemented will finally be analyzed and evaluated on whether or not the actions have brought any positive or negative outcomes. So during this stage, if the employers or employees found that their plans did not work out or did not bring any differences onto their workplace, they would have to go back to the first stage, which is planning, and come up with new suggestions, taking into account the drawbacks that they have found during the early attempts. So the check step is basically where both employers and employees would troubleshoot some of the errors that they have found along the way, and redo if it doesn't work out. So remember that continuous improvement is an ongoing effort. Hence, why if things did not work out, they have to redo and find the most feasible approaches that would help in achieving the goal set earlier. And finally, the last stage, which is act. So after analyzing the approaches implemented and both employers and employees found that there is an improvement, they may proceed to this one final stage, whereby the plan is finally executed onto the whole organization instead of just one department. So however, it is crucial to bear in mind that the results must be constantly monitored from time to time, because there is nothing in this world that is ever constant, and things will always change. Okay, hence why this Schuhart cycle follows a circle with no beginning or end. This shows that the process never stops. Instead, whatever that they have achieved in this plan, this can be a new baseline that can be used to measure for the future improvements.
Hello everyone, my name is Fawaz and I'll be presenting on Kaizen. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the kanji in this slide. So Kaizen is a Japanese word which is derived from two words, which is Kai and Zen. So Kai means good and Zen means change. So this, when you put it together, it literally means good change, or if you look into another perspective, it means improvement. So that is basically what the word is. Alright, now let's take a look at what is Kaizen in definition. Okay, so Kaizen is a concept of creating small positive changes to eventually reap major improvements. What this means is that eventually small changes that you do will lead to big differences. And yeah, so but Kaizen is not just a methodology, it's an attitude based on cooperation and commitment instead of radical top-down transformations. What this means is that um, when you're in the top management, you cannot just take the concept of Kaizen in and apply it in your company and expect everyone to follow it. It's not like that. It's not hierarchical. It's really more towards depending on the attitude and cooperation and commitment of your workers in your workplace. So you cannot actually, you cannot actually expect when you take the concept of Kaizen, when you practice it, uh, it it should be wrong to imply that Kaizen is something that you can actually apply from top down. So yeah, that is what Kaizen is. And then moving on to the 3 core beliefs of Kaizen. First is everything can always be improved. So when you apply the concept of Kaizen, nothing is impossible in terms of improving yourself or your surrounding. You can always improve. There is always room for improvement, even though you think that everything is perfect, but no. So that is what Kaizen is. All right. And then second is the second core belief of Kaizen is that nothing is status quo. So what status quo means is that the way things are. Let's say, for example, you're a worker working in the lowest level of management in the company. So when you apply the concept of Kaizen, it will eventually make you believe that you will not be there forever. You will not stuck there. You will eventually go up, up, and improve yourself in the company itself. So this is the second core belief of Kaizen. And then the third core belief of Kaizen is that adaptation trumps over or surpass over perfectionism. So it believes that when you want to improve, you need to adapt. And perfectionism is not really the way you go with the concept itself. So you need to make sure that you are able to adapt and open to the idea of adapting to the situations that you're in. So yeah, basically that is what Kaizen is. Now let's move on to the Kaizen cycle. There are 7 stages in the Kaizen cycle. So the first one is to involve employees. So when you apply the concept of Kaizen, the first thing that you need to have is to seek the involvement of employees, which includes gathering their help in identifying issues, problems in your company. So when you do this, it automatically creates change itself, because usually it's the top management who will step in and handle the issue or the problem. But when you get employees involved, it's different. It drives change. So it drives change in the sense that when you do it, when you practice it, the idea of everyone can solve the problem and not the top management only will eventually be the norm inside the company, which is what we need. We need every brain to crack on every problem, and everyone is valuable in the company, not just the top management. So that's the first cycle. And then the second cycle is to find problems. So when you get employees to involve in the solutions and the problems, the second thing that you always need to do is to find problems. So how are you going to do this is to use widespread feedback from all employees. So another thing that we can do is to gather a list of potential opportunities and problems. Like I said just now, like one of the core beliefs of Kaizen is that everything can be improved. So even though you feel like your company is a perfect company, everything is perfect, the the workspace is perfect, the workload, the the workflow is perfect. No, you cannot do that. If you do that, you cannot apply Kaizen to your workplace. So that the second one is essential, which is to find problems. When you have problems to list down or to identify in your company, eventually you'll practice to overcome it, right? And then the third cycle is to create a solution. So this cycle is important because we want to encourage employees to think more creatively, and give their ideas, making them feel welcomed. And then when you have these employees who offer their solutions, you pick winning solutions, or 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 solutions from the ideas that is presented. So yeah. And then when you have created a solution, the fourth thing that you need to do is to test the solution. You need to implement the winning solution chosen with everyone participating in the rollout. You can either do this by creating small steps, test out little by little to know if the solution is good or not. And then the fifth cycle is to analyze the results. So when you have tested all the solutions, you need to gather the data, and when you gather the data, you can actually analyze and determine how successful each change has been. So this is how you identify which is the best solution or the best change that you want to take on. And then the sixth step is to standardize. So if results of change are positive, you adopt the solution throughout the organization. That's how it works. And then the seventh step is to repeat. So the thing about Kaizen is that it's not supposed to be a one-time thing. It should be repeated on an ongoing basis with new solutions tested where appropriate or new lists of problems tackled. Hence why going back to the first belief of Kaizen is that everything can be improved, and you need to constantly improve yourself in order to practice Kaizen the right way. Okay, so that is the cycle of Kaizen. Alright, now moving on to the next slide, which is the Kaizen 5S framework. So the Kaizen 5S framework is a critical part of the Kaizen system, and it establishes an ideal physical workspace. So basically this framework focuses on the workspace itself. So yeah, so the 5S focuses on creating visual order, organization, cleanliness, and standardization to improve efficiency, service, and safety of the workplace. Okay, so now let's move on to the framework itself. Let's dive deep into the framework. So the first framework is seiri. The Japanese word is seiri. So what this means is the literal meaning is sort, but what the definition of seiri in the framework is to organize. So you need to separate necessary workplace items from unnecessary ones and remove unnecessary items. So I think if you want to make it relatable, you can relate to Marie Kondo, whereby you throw away things that you don't need, and you only use it or keep things that you need. So this is how you can actually apply how you make your workspace efficient. And then the second one is seiton. So seiton, the literal meaning is to set in order. So the definition is to create orderliness. So how are you going to create orderliness is you arrange items to allow for easy access in the way that makes the most sense for work. Let's say, for example, you have a computer table. So when you have a computer table, obviously the first thing that you need in order for you to use the computer is a keyboard and mouse. So how are you going to create orderliness in order for you to access the computer is to ensure there is nothing else in front of the keyboard, or nothing is obstructing the keyboard and mouse. So that is how you create orderliness. Yeah. And then the third step in the framework is say so, or shine, which is the literal meaning, but the definition is cleanliness. So this is pretty much straightforward. You need to keep your workplace clean and tidy all the time. If you have, when you eat food, when you have dine-in foods or take-out foods inside your workplace, throw it right away. Don't leave it there and let ants or bugs came to your table and eat it. It will not. It's not an ideal workplace for you to have a dirty workspace. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. The fourth one, which is seiketsu, or standardize, the literal word. The definition is standardized cleaning. So what this means is that you need to have a systemized, you need to systemize workplace cleanup. So since the word itself came from Japan, or the framework itself came from Japan, let's take a look at one of the common practices in their offices or in their schools, whereby every morning in school, these students will actually clean up the classes themselves using using cloths, and they did everything by themselves, unlike us in school back then, whereby we only clean up when the window pane starting to get dusty, or when there's something spilled on the floor. We did not practice it like every day. I mean, we do have cleaning schedules or duty rosters, but we don't actually make it a practice for everyone to do it, but we assign certain people to do it each day. So that is one of the frameworks that we need to have in order to have an efficient workspace. And then the last one is shitsuke, or sustain. So this the definition of the word itself in terms of the framework is discipline, which is to keep the effort going. Of course, again, looking at the Japanese, we know that commitment is important, especially in your work. So in order for you to apply Kaizen in the most efficient way, is to actually have that effort to keep it going itself. Alright, so this is the framework for the Kaizen 5S, Kaizen 5S framework, which is mainly used to utilize or to make your workspace more efficient and tidy, physical workspace, right? So yeah. So now let's take a look on the next slide. Alright, so now let's take a look at the importance of Kaizen and continuous improvement. So first and foremost is you're going to have waste reduction. So how this applies is that remember in the Kaizen framework, where we have where you throw away unnecessary things, the things that you don't need, and you only use things that you need. So this is the way that you can actually reduce waste, whereby you only focus or you get the things that you need, right? So yeah, that's the first one. Second one is in terms of productivity. Obviously, when you have this drive of constantly wanting to improve and wanting to change, and you're never satisfied with you're never in the idea of feeling that everything is perfect, and you constantly want to adapt new things and apply new things to your workspace or your workflow, so you can improve and be better. So this will this speaks the word productivity itself. If you improve, you're productive. Not saying that if you feel that everything is perfect, you're not productive, but eventually you'll stop and you're comfortable with where you are, and you'll stop working eventually. You'll stop being productive. So yeah, that's the second importance of Kaizen and continuous improvement. The third one is quality. So when you want to improve, you need to have a framework. You need to have a stance or belief that you hold on. You cannot just have this drive to change, but you don't have the framework or the concept to apply for. So having Kaizen increases the quality of the change that you want to make. So yeah, that's the third importance of Kaizen and continuous improvement. The fourth one is accuracy. So speaking about accuracy, uh, looking at the Kaizen cycle, the 7 steps of Kaizen cycle, it's very accurate in the sense that um, you will be following the steps instead of going over, skipping over one step or maybe 2 steps. So it doesn't feel perfect, or you don't feel right doing it at some point. So yeah, that is why Kaizen is very important, is to make it accurate. To help you measure accurately the change that you want to bring. So the fifth thing is empowerment. So when you have continuous improvement and when you have Kaizen in your workplace, you will not just improve yourself, but your colleagues, your company's work culture, and maybe other companies' work culture, when they see how your company works using Kaizen and continuous improvement, eventually they'll do a benchmark. And benchmarks are done to actually, for people to actually see how things are done in that particular place. And usually when benchmarks are done, it means that the place that they are benchmarking is exemplary. So this is what we call empowerment in terms of influencing others. Okay, so next is happy workplace. So this applies again directly to the 5S framework, where you have a clean, tidy workspace, and it's accessible, it's easy for you to do work, and not to mention that when it's clean and it's accessible, you'll be happy to work as well, and you'll not be stressful over little things such as garbage or smelly foods. So yeah, that is the sixth importance of Kaizen and CI, which is happy workplace. So the seventh importance is satisfaction. So when you have this drive, wanting to improve yourself constantly, you'll be satisfied with how you've come when you do a reflection at some point. So this is a very good a very good thing for humans, emotionally, basically. Yeah. And then the last one is continuous improvement itself. So when you apply Kaizen and you apply Kaizen in your workplace, eventually you'll improve continuously without stopping, without having the urge to stop. So this is why Kaizen is very, very important for us to apply in the workplace itself. Alright, so now I'm going to pass the final slide to Camila again. Thank you so much.
Hello again. I hope everyone is still doing okay. Just hang in there just a little bit more because this is the final part for this whole presentation. So bear with me. Just one more subtopic, okay? So we'll have a look on the benefits of implementing continuous improvement and Kaizen onto the workplace. So firstly, improved product quality. Obviously, when there is an improvement in the workplace, there will also be an improved quality in its products. So for instance, when the goal of making the office a more positive place is achieved, everyone in the organization will, feel happy to come to work, and that will eventually help them to be more driven to give out their best in their work. So hence this will increase the product quality. Okay. So next is CI and Kaizen will increase the efficiency and productivity of the people in the organization. So when things are convenient for both employers and employees, meaning that they don't have to deal with unnecessary stress out there, this will eventually aid in increasing each one of their productivity in doing their work. Okay. Third one is CI and Kaizen will help in decreasing the cost for a company to spend on in achieving something. So, for instance, we use the same example to achieve to make the office a positive place. Okay, so when they follow the Shoe Heart cycle or the Kaizen cycle, the company, they do not have to hire a speaker out there to give out a seminar to the employees in effort to achieve a positive workplace atmosphere. Instead, they can just come up with the solution together and follow the cycles that me and Fawaz have mentioned earlier, and this will eventually help them to save cost. Okay. Moving on, CI and Kaizen helps in achieving employee satisfaction and teamwork. This is because both CI and Kaizen require employers and employees to work together in detecting and also in overcoming the issues. This way, both parties are welcome to voice out their concerns and also state their preferences in overcoming some of the problems. So eventually their teamwork skills will also be improved, as well as they will feel more satisfied because everyone's voice is heard and also they feel more included. Lastly, CI and Kaizen will help in accomplishing customer satisfaction. This is because the company's product quality has improved, making the customers satisfied with what they are paying for. Okay, so basically in essence, everything is like a domino effect. When the organization has overcome their problems, the employers and employees' work performances will improve, which will then improve their product quality. And next, the customers will feel satisfied with their service. And finally, the reputation of the whole organization will also be improved. So I guess that is all from my part, and also that wraps up the whole presentation. Thank you so much for listening till the end, and I hope everyone will have a great day ahead. And thank you so much once again. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.